Madeline, can you hear me? Can I get a thumbs up? She dropped off. Bummer. Okay, I'm sure she'll come on in a second. Okay, so what we've got here is kind of classic Rembrandt lighting. And what it is it starts off with a circle, and then by adding tones, you get something that looks three-dimensional. And it's like, I'll just point out some of the anatomy of it. So the light source is coming from this side, the top left. And because of the lights coming from this side and to the front, I don't know if you can see how I'm like moving my pencil. So it's not only on the side, but it's also from the front, and it's basically illuminating roughly 2/3. Okay, let's see if this works better. Madeline just tried to come in.
Hi, sorry. Sometimes my Zoom just like doesn't work, and then I have to leave the meeting and rejoin and everything.
No, I know.
So.
I mean, it happens all the time. Well, welcome back anyway.
Thank
I
you.
did a little introduction to you. I'd let everybody know that you're interning in a senior at Park and all that jazz. So this class, Madeline is a, I guess it's like mostly middle school, but there's some high school as well. And the last week we were talking about doing eyes. So we're gonna do almost all eyes. I've got a bunch of Degas references from different angles, and let's see. I just want to make sure everybody's coming in here. And whoever doesn't make it, we can always send them the video. Okay, so back to the explanation of the, and honestly, I think we should draw this. Can you guys take a screenshot of this somehow? Is that a thing? Julie, yeah, I don't know if everybody is able to do that. It'll be really helpful because, what's that?
Right? Photo with your phone, right?
Yeah, you can take a picture with your phone or the computer or whatever. We're gonna draw it, but it's a lot easier if you can like have the reference in front of you. I mean, I've drawn this thing probably 500 times. I mean, like it's actually fun practice, just because spheres become so like they're so much a part of this reality. You know, it's the moon. It's an eyeball. You can turn this into an eyeball. It's like the globe. You know, it's like any one of the planets. It's a grape. It's a baseball. It's a ping pong ball. I mean, it's just there. It's all over the place. It's an earlobe in some cases. So by learning, you know, actually how to light the sphere and then how to render it, and you know, it's a good practice on terms of how to make things in the three-dimensional, and it'll be a nice warm up for drawing eyes today, because you need, in order to draw eyes, you have to be able to understand their spherical nature so that you can see the eyelid coming across. And it's basically like a thin sheath of skin. Like your eyelids, you can, if you pinch your eyelid, you can do it right now. It's just loose skin. It doesn't have any structure, but the density of the eyeball gives that eyelid its form. So it's like clothes. You know what I mean? You take your sock off and it like falls to the ground with no structure. You put it on, and it takes on the shape of your foot. So eyelids are a huge chunk of doing eyeballs, and you have to see why their form is the way that it is, and it's because of the eyeball. God, this coffee is so good. All right, so here we go. There's not that much anatomy to it, you know, to the sphere. You start with a circle. There's the basic breakdown into its, you know, simplest elements, like the moon. There's the light side of the moon. There's the dark side of the moon. So the light side and the shadow side. You know, there is a transition from the light side into the shadow side. You know, so it gets lighter and then it progressively gets darker. In the light mass, there's the highlight. So that is like the peak, and depending on the texture, like depending on the nature of the surface, has a different reflection. So, you know, a piece of like polished metal will have a different feel than a rock, a rough rock in the woods, and a wet, and a wet eyeball will have a different feel than the shiny skin of an apple. It's like every texture has a different way of reflecting the light that's hitting it, but the highlight is an anatomical component that you have to consider, part of the light mass, of course. And then I don't know if you can see it in here, but where my pencil tip is right now, where you can see that the lead's exposed, and when you come in here, it disappears. This is the darkest part of the shadow side. So this is like the core of the shadow. So if this is the lightest part of the light mass, the core of the shadow is the darkest part of the shadow mass. And the reason this thing exists is because in this case, the ball is resting on the table. So you would think, like, when you look at the moon, when there's no other light on the shadow side of the moon. So there's no reflected light. There's nothing else. There's not a secondary light source. The stars are not strong enough to create any kind of noticeable light on the dark side of the moon. But here in this environment, you can whatever book this came from, the light is coming from up above. It's hitting the table and it's bouncing back up into the underside of the ball. And that's called reflected light. So down here on Earth, where there's lots of different light sources, sometimes it's from the window, sometimes it's from the lights up above. Sometimes, if you walk in on just like on a floor, if you're swimming, like if you're in a swimming pool, the light bounces off the water and reflects back up into your face. If you're on the beach, the sand reflects back up. I mean, painting light on the beach is like one of the most amazing and most complicated things you'll ever see, because it's all out in the open and there's light bouncing off the water. There's light coming from the sun. It's coming off the sand. It's awesome. And it's just fun to observe. This is a control environment. So this is like basically as standard of a lighting arrangement as you can get. And they call it Rembrandt Lighting because Rembrandt kind of made it famous. We're not going to draw Rembrandt today, but in my morning class we did. And and it was lit exactly like this, where a little bit to the side and a little bit to the front. Okay, so we got light mass, we got the shadow mass. So like inside the circle, the whole area that has the light is called the light mass. And it goes for any object, anything, and then the shadow part of the object is the shadow mass. And there's always variations, infinite variations inside the light and inside the dark. And the other thing is, when you think about like a black object, or I'm looking at my walls, or like a gray wall, like this is a gray ball. Just because an object is dark doesn't mean that it doesn't have a light part and a shadow part. So sometimes people with like really dark hair, you just think you can like color it all in dark, but there should be a gradient. And even the color black. There is actually on my Instagram, I keep getting advertisements for like this British painter that invented like the blackest black, and it makes things that, objects that are 3D appear flat. And, that is like, it just absorbs so much light. Most black objects are not like the blackest black, and you can tell that there's a gradation and a variation of tonalities, both in the light mass and the shadow mass. I just wanted to point that out. And the reason there's this excessive, almost excessive variation in the shadow mass is because there's a secondary light source, which is in fact the table. So the primary light source hits the ball, secondary light source hits the table, and then bounces back up into the underside. Let's see. Who's the Hess? Let's see. Robin Hess. Oh my gosh. I just did the wrong thing. Hey, is that Robin? Is that Robin Hess? Who is that? I can't see.
It would be Lonnie.
Oh, hey, what's up, Lonnie? I'm used to seeing a different a different screen name. What's up, Lonnie? So Lonnie, I was just describing the nature of a lit sphere, so that it can like inform us as we sketch the eyes today. We're going to start with eyes that are kind of facing us directly, and then we'll do a couple that are seen from the side. And I'll tell you all the tricks of everything that I know about how to draw eyes and the concepts that you need in order to understand that like everybody's eyes are different, but there are standard things that every eye has. And we're just going to kind of go over that standard sequence of things that you need to remember about the eye. So then you can just draw eyes for the rest of your life and you know what to look for. And then when you look for it, you can be like, oh wow, that's interesting. Like that's, and you can explore the variations that nature's provided us for, for the rest of your life. It never gets boring. Eyes never get boring to draw, especially when you know what's going on. All right, so back to these identifications, Lonnie. I said that there was the light mass, there's the shadow mass. Within the light mass, there's the highlight. Within the shadow mass, there's the core of the shadow, which is the darkest part. The core of the shadow is really helpful in terms of describing the roundness of it. It's not a belt loop. It's not like the equator. It's a little bit lower, but it helps to, it's a latitudinal line that helps to describe the fullness and the roundness of the 3D object. The table bounces back up light into the underside, creating that reflected light, which is why there's a core of the shadow to begin with, because the light turns away from the ball on the light source and then it turns away from the ball on the secondary light source. And so kind of like where the the greatest distance away from both light sources, that's where the core of the shadow is. In this case, the ball is a solid object, so it's throwing like a pretty intense shadow on the table. So there's no light getting through this object, whether the object is stone or glass or metal or clay. It doesn't actually matter. It's opaque, meaning there's no light that can penetrate it. So the shadow is being thrown on the ground because no other light can get through the ball. There is, on the other hand, you see how the edge of the shadow here is a little bit diffused? It's a little bit lighter at the edge than near the ball. Light from in the room is pouring in, but light from like the light is not passing through the ball into the shadow. It's bouncing from the outside into this shadow area so that you're getting softer edges and the shadow gets lighter as it moves away from the contact point of the ball on the table. Hey, Mr. Messick, good to see you. You haven't missed much. We haven't even started drawing. Just explaining the finer points of a lit sphere. The example that I like to use for landscape painting, it like blew my mind when I heard it, and I was like in my like 30s when I heard this for the first time. If you look in the summer, if you look at a tree, imagine this is like a green tree with like a tree trunk down here. The leaves of a green tree are opaque, meaning the green they're like solar panels and they absorb the light and they're meant to not be penetrated. So like you can go underneath the shade of a tree and it's very pleasant. It's cooler. The temperature is even lower. So like leaves are solid objects in the summer. In the fall, when the chlorophyll starts to go away, the seasons are changing. The leaves actually, the leaves appear to change color. So they appear to become yellow and red and orange. The truth is that all of those yellows, oranges, and reds are actually in the leaf already. It's just that they're dominated by the green. They're dominated by the chlorophyll. So the chlorophyll goes away. The leaves become actually really thin, like paper thin, and they become like tissue paper, and they're transparent. And so a tree that was a solid object as a painter, like meaning like you would paint light green with a highlight and then dark green with the core of the shadow with maybe even some reflected light. You would paint the tree in the summer solid, whereas in the fall, that tree becomes like glass. If this was like a colored glass ball, the light would pass through with, the glass would block some of the light, but it wouldn't block all of it. And the light would pass through and there would be all these interesting designs on the tabletop. And that's exactly what happens in the fall when the light passes through these trees that have turned and the chlorophyll has gone away. And that's why fall foliage, that's why people freak out about fall colors and why the trees look so impressive. Because when the sun, sets, all the warm light comes from the sun, from the setting sun, turns red, orange, you know, these bright yellows, and the light is penetrating through the canopy of the forest. So all of the light is bouncing all around inside of basically these glass domes, not solid domes like in the summer. And you know, it feels like the leaves are on fire. You know what I mean? Like they're just really beautiful to see, especially in the golden hour when the sun goes down. And it's because the nature of the leaves themselves, the properties have changed because the chlorophyll has gone away, and therefore it's receiving the light differently. They're glass spheres instead of you know, solid spheres like this. So I know it's a little bit long-winded of an explanation, but like, you won't experience the fall the same way again. And when you study the way that you look at trees in the summer, and there's like bright green sides and then deep dark shadows, and it's because they're solid objects. And the whole game changes when the fall comes. Okay, so yes, this is the cast shadow. So it's an intense shadow thrown on the ground. It is elliptical because the light is at an angle, and we're seeing this at an angle. You know, it's the width is actually probably the width is longer than the sphere itself, and then top to bottom, it's pinched. It's smaller. Cool. Let's why don't we just like sketch? We don't need this example. I'll pull it back in. But if everybody can just sketch this along with me, what we're going to do is we're going to draw the sphere together, and then we can turn the sphere into an eyeball, and then we'll turn the eyeball. You know, I'll explain how the eyelid goes over top of the eyeball, and we'll have this just like generic eye, and then we'll go start drawing some like real eyes. Does that sound good? So this one might be a little bit clumsy, but I think you'll understand what how important it is when we get through. So let's just draw a circle. Everyone get a circle. Yes. I'm usually better at drawing circles. What are you gonna do? All right, and so then I'm gonna in my picture, I'm gonna draw this little arrow. You could draw like a sun up there. Let me make sure that the oh, I bet you have to change the focus. Yeah, there it goes. That's better. This is the sun, or the light source, a light bulb, whatever. It looks like a hairy spider. It's supposed to be a light source. What are you gonna do? All right, so then this is the light side, and I'm gonna just say this is the shadow side. If you guys are using pencil, you know, we can use the you can use the tortillon and smooth this thing out. So I'm thinking that about 2/3 is light, 1/3 is shadow. I had it a second ago. Did I put it away? It would have been so smart of me to put my tools away, but I never do. So why would I expect it? Here it is. Yes, it's out. Okay. So some of my marks I laid in thinking in terms of bracelet lines. So you know that this sphere is rounded. So I'm just trying to go for directions that make it feel like it's already a little bit rounded, and they can kind of go in any direction, but they're going to be eliminated anyway. So whatever kind of curving line of application I put on there, it's going to be blended out for the most part. Cool. All right, let's do the according to the other one, the light they gave us these lines that indicated like the light was kind of coming down at an angle, and I actually think it's not a bad idea. You know, my light source now has kind of shifted. It's further away, obviously, but what that gives you is that you can then imagine the length of that shadow, and then you can do the rounded part. This is like super rounded at the corner, almost like a racetrack. It's like a racetrack that you're seeing from the side. I have to change I just erased my hairy spider. There's nothing that makes me happier than seeing a a kid's drawing of the sun because it's like, it's such a profound and confusing, and it's just like an overwhelming concept. Like the sun is just overwhelming in terms of its power and its impact on human beings and on our history. It's always been there. Every human on the planet that's lived has experienced it. It's such a unifying concept. And then kids just feel so comfortable with addressing it, like addressing visually, and so simply and so innocently. It's just like so great. Just studying the history of sun drawings in various cultures is, I've done lessons on that before, and that's like never ending. All right, so I feel good about that. I've got my little cast shadow. The point where the ball is on the table, I think I'm gonna make it like particularly dark. And then I'm gonna add some horizontal strokes to kind of help fuel the notion that it's like a flat table. And unlike the reference that we got to use that I like pulled off the internet, that was on gray paper. So we don't have really the luxury of gray paper. So we're trying to get to the highlight. And if you look at my finger up here, or my pencil tip, this area is going to be where the highlight is. And I want you to like almost like fix on it with your mind's eye, but I don't want to put any pencil marks there because it's going to screw it up. So that's where my highlight is. So I'm going to just kind of like lay in some pigment, almost like the reflection is a sun. You know, I'm just going to add some curvature. I'm just going to kind of build around it. I'm just adding some pigment so that it's still the light mass. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, this is still going to be the light area. It's just, if the highlight is going to be the lightest part, that means everything else has to be a little bit dark. So I'm trying to, you know, have the light mass, make sure the light mass is, you know, significantly lighter than the shadow, but I'm going to kind of slowly move in with my tones and wrap around and get into the, and, you know, achieve the highlight by, you know, having only the highlight of the paper exposed. Oh man, mine looks more of like a, I don't know what it looks like. It looks like a deflated balloon. It looks like a balloon that's like a helium balloon that's been like 4 days old, and it's just like resting on the ground, and it's the rubber, the plastic is like starting to become wilted and weak, and but that's okay. I'm not oh, that's cool. Okay, this is really cool. All right, so now maybe what we could do is we can you know, juice up the shadow, the core of the shadow. So again, the light is passing, the light is hitting the ball, and then you can actually draw like a little arrow. So like the light hits the table and it's bouncing back up into the underside. So I'm putting the shadow where the ball is away from the light source, but it's also away from the table reflection. So it's kind of far away from the bottom of the ball. And maybe it looks like an orange now. I feel like it looks like an orange. It's like spherical, but not a sphere. All right, that's good. Now, like I was saying with the, unlike our example that we used, we're going to put this entire picture inside of a rectangle. So we have to divide essentially the tabletop from the background, and then we got to make a picture plane. And the picture plane is the top, bottom, left, and right. so we know where to stop shading. Top, bottom. And I'm going to crop my light source, I think. I will eliminate my light source after I start shading. Okay, so like I said, this is the control. So when you when you observe objects and how light is hitting them, these are kind of like this example that we're sketching here is designed to remind you of the things that you need to ask. Like when you're looking at it, you know, you ask the object, you ask yourself these questions so you know how to attack it. So this line that we used is basically an abstract suggestion of the edge of the object. So it's the line, is the line part of the object or is it part of the background? And what we're attempting to do is basically minimize the amount of lines. And it's not even minimizing the lines. It's like the line is all the same in this example. Sometimes you want to use line, sometimes you want to use tone, and you really want to get like the three-dimensional aspects of the sphere to come out. So part of what way you can get that that third dimension is separating the object from the background. And you can separate the object from the background by determining whether the object is light and the background is dark, or, and then, what is the object and what is the background? That's the question. So in the light mass here, we're going to make the light mass be lighter than the background. So right now we have a line that separates the object from the background, but the object is light. So we need to take that line and diffuse it into the background. And the object, believe it or not, will become lighter, will appear to be lighter because it's up against this darker background. And I'm laying in my pigment, all going in the same direction, just so I can have some unity. Without blending, this process can take a very long time because you really, really want consistency. Now, there's a certain beauty in the discipline of trying to develop, hand applying pigment to be really soft and really smooth. But this is a demo and we don't have all day. So as the line that we used to separate the ball from the background, that line ceases to exist because the identity of the line becomes that of the background. And what was originally useful is now non-existent. And it's like become part of this background. Cool. So that's good. All right, let me kind of smooth this out. Hopefully you guys didn't attempt to draw too large, because the bigger your rectangle, the more you have to shade. Okay, so that one is kind of like an easy answer because it's a light object and you want a dark background to help push the separation between the object and the background. So that's what we did, and I'm proud of it. Okay, the next kind of easy answer, I would say, is when you have the shadow side of the ball, you want the shadow side of the ball to separate from the background as well. So we're going to take the line that we use to separate the ball from the background, and we're going to diffuse that into the ball. So we've kind of switched the identity of the line. The line up here became part of the background, where in the shadow side, it's going to become part of the ball. Does that change the scale and the size of the ball a little bit? It does, You know, like there is an actual thickness to that line. It's small, it's minuscule, but there is going to be a moment where it's almost like it's like no man's land. It's like, where does the line cease to be background and become the ball? And it's like right around here. And you just want to make it so subtle and so quiet that you don't even know. And part of the way you can do that is by diffusing your edge so softly and making a contrast that's, you know, so light. So back to what I was saying about the highlight, everything in this rectangle is going to need to have some kind of pigment to it, except for the highlight on the ball. Cool. So I am shading the background up against the shadow side of the ball, but that background is still going to be lighter than the shadow side of the ball. And then this point where it switches, that's a you know, it's an anomaly. It's an anomalous area. All right. So if you think about it, what we just did, if I shade my background down to the edge of the wall, and then I shade my slightly lighter background to the edge of the wall and then up into this corner, there's a tool in Instagram. I think they still call it Vignette. And Vignette basically burns the corners in terms of the value. It darkens the corners of the rectangle. And when you darken the corners of the rectangle, it keeps the person's eye focused in the middle. And it keeps the attention away from the corners. Humans, when they see an intersection, when they see one line meeting another line, for so many reasons, your eye's attracted to it. One line, a vertical and a horizontal, creates a 90-degree angle. It creates a point. It creates an intersection. And those 90-degree angles have had, you know, meaning, so much meaning, from just, you know, basic processing, humans just processing data on the planet. It's just it causes attention, and by darkening the corners and maintaining like a vignette, like a darker corner, that it minimizes the amount of attention that corner gets, so that your eye is able to focus on the middle. And it's like a very classical art concept that's been used for, you know, forever. And it's just amazing to see it kind of translate into modern technology and modern apps. All right, so I'm going to put a second round of darkness in this corner, and then I might even pull out some of these lights. By pulling out the lights on this edge, I'm creating what's called a halo. So it's almost like this imaginary emphasis. I'm kind of pushing the background away because I'm further increasing the separation between the ball and the background. So the ball, even though the ball is dark, it still comes forward. Nice. So this would be a situation called a light halo, where you modify the background to increase the separation. And then on this end, to further make the lights appear lighter and the background to appear further away, this would be called a dark halo. You want to go easy on the halos. I did it really nicely on this side. It's almost, you want it to be unnoticeable. If it looks like there's like, you know, have you ever seen like those they have them at like the dollar store. There's like there's like a face behind plastic, and there's like little magnetic shavings in there, and you can like move with the magnet. You can move the shavings towards the to make like a mustache or something. If this looks like there's magnetic shavings, you've overdone it. And I might be that person. Let's see if I can bring in some unity here. Quiet this down. Hey, Sebastian, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Cool. What's up?
Doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm trying to draw this sphere so we can get into drawing the eyes. But it's turning out to be a more of a punishment than I was anticipating. Not really punishment. But what I will say is that we'll make this background, once we've got this background, that's pretty good. I think if we just make the tone, let's make the light of the table. We'll have the tone, but we'll just make it really faint. I'm gonna try and erase these radiating lines. Maybe the table is like a white tablecloth. Oh, that's interesting. And then maybe there's even a greater reflected light on the bottom of our sphere here. What I was going to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that you want to continue going 365 degrees around the circle, and where the in this case the bottom, from maybe 2:30 all the way down to like 4:30, maybe even 5 o'clock. That line is part of the ball, and then once you switch over into the shadow, I think that line becomes part of the shadow area. And then possibly even this, like in the link, it might need a line that is unidentifiable. Is it part of the shadow or is it part of the sphere? Like I said, lines are not bad. You just want to have variation. Sometimes you want tone, so this is a dark ball up against a light background. That's nice. You can use that line, it can stay there. And then the line becomes part of the shadow. That happens all the way into here. And then, I think even in this, where the ball starts to emerge into the light mass, I think the ball is going to be darker than the white of the tablecloth. Look how subtle it is. It's kind of nice. So this exercise isn't to get a beautiful drawing. It's just for me to kind of explain some ideas and some words, introduce them in a way that when we start drawing the actual eyeball, you're not going to be, when I say like when on the eyelid, when there's like, the core of the shadow is as the eyelid turns, curls over to the far side, it'll be a little bit more familiar. The edges really do diffuse a lot as it gets to the edge way over here. Look at that. It really does. It does look different on the screen too, which is okay. But man, you can't make any mistakes on the screen. Wow. My drawing looks so much better in person. It's not that it looks better. It's just that there's, the screen is very unforgiving. Yeah, I'm drawing for the screen now. See this dark halo? I'm trying to blend that dark halo and gradually diffuse that out into the kind of this ambiguous ephemeral background. The background, no one knows what the background is. It's just like an empty room. But I think it was actually a textural thing. Now, this is the shadow side, the darker part of the room. Now I want to gradually move the background into where it gets lighter, but I want it to be so gradual and so almost that you can't even detect it. Oh man, I don't know if that's possible. And the darker I go, the higher the contrast is. Let's see. Ooh, buddy. Slow down. Yeah, look at that. There's even a line that's there. So soft. I'm trying to make it soft at least. Maybe it needs a line there. It's not bad. Okay, the tabletop is still a little too bright, and I really want the highlight on my ball to be the principal dancer, meaning the main focus. So even if there's a almost an indistinguishable contrast between the ball and the tabletop, I do want to darken it, and I can have the vignette effects in dark areas, obviously up here, but you can also bring it in lighter areas, and the degree of darkness just lessens. So we're trying to create the illusion of the third dimension. It's still a flat piece of paper. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to turn this into an eyeball. And it's going to get a little creepy for a little while because it's just going to look like it's an eyeball resting on the table. But I think ultimately it's going to be good for your brain. All right, so there is a ratio that is worth studying, which is the size of the human eyeball, the sclera, to the size of the iris and the pupil. Now the pupil is always adjustable, and the pupil is a hole. It's a cavity. It's an opening. It has a lens over it, and then whatever is on the eyeball, like a sheaths of like protective skin. But that is a, it's a keyhole, and then so there's all the light enters in through this, and it goes into like kind of an oblivion. Like no one knows really what's going on back there. I'm sure like an ophthalmologist, it must be fascinating. Like when they hold up that light and they like look into your eye, I wonder if they see into the back. I should like, find out about that. Anyway, the eyeball seen from the side, this is the eyeball, and then your iris protrudes up. So it's almost like it's like a separate island. It's almost like a separate radius. So as I lay in the my, whatever it's called, the iris, I like to think about the iris as a miniature dome. It's like a dome on top of the sphere. So the properties of the eye that we're looking for, even if you have blue eyes, the iris is darker. And what happens often, well, there's like a reverse kind of effect, but just for our purposes, there is like the light side of the iris and the shadow side of the iris. And there is like light that bounces all around, but you still want to think about it, light side at the top, shadow side on the bottom. And then because the eyeball itself is wet. It's wet all the time. That's how you know that you're alive. And you blink and your upper eyelid passes the moisture across, evenly distributed across your eye. This, I'm just drawing a highlight here. This is actually a reflection of our light source up here. Sometimes it's a circle. When you're outside and it's the sun, it's a circle. If you're inside the house and it's a window, it's usually rectangular. Most people have rectangular windows. This is just this highlight on here. So we just went from a sphere into an eyeball, and hopefully that wasn't like that disturbing. All right. So the white of the eyeball here is the sclera. You never really see it like this because you have these protective this protective skin that covers it. So I'm going to start laying on the eyelids, and we're going to start from the tear duct. So the tear duct I'm going to place right here. And when the tear duct is added, it's a gland. And what the tear duct does is, when you have your hair on the top of your head, it's basically a filter, and it protects you. It insulates your head, but it also protects, like if you're running through the woods, the big chunks, the big sticks get stuck in your hair because they're trying to protect your eyes. Then your eyebrow, the hair on your eyebrow, because of gravity, protects from the debris and the sweat and the moisture, all of that coming down from the top. It protects and it filters the next layer of debris. So thick filter, semi-thick filter with your eyebrow, and then you have your upper eyelid, the fold of it creates a gutter. So that's like actually another form to push the material and the sweat and the moisture and the debris and the particles away from your eye. And then finally you have eyelashes. Your upper eyelashes are thicker because of gravity. Not only do they protect from objects getting in your eye, they also act as antenna and sensory. You can imagine, like, if even something remotely comes close to your eye, it starts fluttering like involuntarily. Incredible system of protective safety protection on your face, to guard from your eyes. If you don't have your eyes, you really don't have anything if you're out in nature on your own. Thank God for communities. All right, so this is the tear duct. This is a gland. You could maybe mark it, maybe make it like, no, you don't have to mark it. I was gonna make it pink. Maybe I'll make it pink. The pink, there's a little bit of red when you do a painting or a drawing. A little bit of red in the tear duct makes the person alive like you wouldn't believe. It just makes them look healthy, and like it really makes just a little bit of red is immediately identifiable to any viewer seeing the picture, that the thing is in fact alive. Okay, so this is the fun part, and this is the most important part about learning how to do eyes, is that these skin eyelids that go across the eyes are taking the shape of the rounded eyeball. And I'll do the lower eyelid first, because the lower eyelid never moves. You know what I mean? You can squint your eyes, your upper eyelid goes a little bit, like you make an expression, your upper eyelid goes way back. The upper eyelid is the variable. That's the one that's always kind of changing. The lower eyelid, stays put. And the bottom is almost like a basket. Like the bottom eyelid functions almost like a basket holding the bottom part of the eyeball in place. So where the eyelid is in contact with the eyeball, it's in whatever they're called, makeup circles or fashion circles, like makeup artists, they call that the watermark. And there's this little gentle accumulation of moisture that happens right at that, because it's just, you can imagine that, like, it's like it's like the rain on your windshield, like if it drips downwards. So the moisture on your eye falls down, and then it collects at this little shelf that is the lower eyelid. So I'm wrapping this eyelid around the ball of the eyeball. And now what I just drew, I did like the watermark where the eyelid touches the eyeball, and then I drew the thickness of the skin. That is the skin. So I'm going to erase the shading there, because I just drew a new object. I'm actually drawing skin, so this is no longer eyeball. All right, cool. And then the eyelashes come out of the outside of that eyelid. So they grow on the outside. The bottom of the eyelid here, it wraps around the bottom as well. You can actually shade it, in this basket form, where it goes down like this. I wish I would have drawn this first. I wish I would have shaded this first. It's the underplane, and then the ball is lower than that. But then what happens here is that this is the in the eyeball itself, it's the the start of the cheekbone and the eye socket. So the eyeball, as it goes back, is actually resting inside of the cavity of the eye socket. So the eyelid isn't like holding the eyeball in place. There's all kinds of muscles, and then there's the bone, and it's floating inside of this cavity. But as far as its exposure to the front of the world, that's what the lower eyelid does, and it's great. I'm a big fan of the lower eyelid. That's really pretty too. So this is me drawing these eyelashes that grow on the outside. Goth kids will actually put, eyeliner on that shelf, is my understanding. Or maybe it goes right underneath the eyebrow hair, the eyelash hair. I'm not exactly sure. Oh, I could tell that story, but I probably won't. No, I will tell it. I had my buddy was like a goth in he loved like The Cure and like 80s emo music basically. And he married this wonderful woman, Roz. And when he was about to get married, I kind of like I saw him beforehand and I was like, oh, you're not wearing any makeup, because he he used to like dress up and like not wear makeup like to be like a woman, but wear makeup because it was like the goth fashion. And he was like, oh, I forgot. And then he wound up nervously putting on eyeliner, and it went all over the place. And like he didn't have anybody help him do it, and he just did. And he was like nervous because he was about to get married. And then he had like all this eyeliner all over the place, but his wife loved it so much because that's just his style. I almost kind of wish I helped him do it, but yeah, it was everywhere. Oh God. All right. So let's do the lower eyelid. Let's do the upper eyelid. Hopefully you can kind of see, do you see, because I shaded the sphere, you can kind of see that the right side of the eyeball, the part of the eyeball that's away from the light, the sclera is actually shaded. That happens in reality. It's amazing. And not only that, but sometimes the iris will cast a little shadow on the sclera as well. So there's all these like little subtleties that happen in eye drawings that if you don't really understand the spherical nature of the eyeball, you kind of miss out on it. Okay, so let's do the watermark up above. And I would say like most often the watermark clips the top of the eye. The iris rather. The contact point does clip the top of the iris. And so whether it does or it doesn't, there's a couple reasons why this upper eyelid appears to overlap the top of the iris. And I'll explain it here in a second. So we did the thickness of the lower eyelid. Now the thickness of the upper eyelid, they're exactly the same thickness. The only difference is that the upper eyelid is a down plane. When I say down plane, it's like if I hold my hand like this, you can see the bottom of my hand. The bottom of my hand is in shadow. The top of my hand is in light. So it's shadow, light. So an up plane receives the light. That's the lower eyelid. And then the down plane, if it's angled towards the ground, it's not receiving light from up above. So it's in shadow. And the thickness of that eyelid goes in shadow. So you can actually shade that. So without any eyelashes at all, the upper eyelid is inherently darker. The other thing is that the upper eyelid overlaps the lower eyelid. Now, it's just a gravitational thing and it's just a protective thing. You can actually take the corner of your eye and open it like this, and one meets the other in this kind of fashion. It's like the upper eyelid goes like this, and then there's a crease, and then the lower eyelid goes like that. Like you can actually see how it's the same track, upper eyelid and lower eyelid. But there's the upper eyelid, the flap of the skin, there's more of it. So it appears to be overlapping the lower eyelid. FYI. The upper eyelashes grow from the outside, just like the lower eyelid. Now, the difference is that depending on where the eyelid is, sometimes these lashes will dip down and then grow back up, dip down and then grow back up. They start on the outside, dip down and then grow up, dip down and then grow up. Start on the outside, dip down and then sweep up. And they wind up making what is essentially like a cylinder, like a rounded form. I'm trying to like make these consistent. And the eyelashes are no joke. Now, a lot of times artists will leave them out. It just depends on the artist. It depends on the closeness of the portrait. It depends on a lot of factors. And then those eyelashes, if you choose to include them, function like a visor. So in the same way that the bill of your hat comes out and casts a shadow, or you put your hand up and it casts a shadow so you can see better. The plane of these eyelashes come out and they actually throw a shadow onto the sclera, the upper portion of the sclera. They cast a shadow on the upper portion of the iris and then the sclera again on both sides. So we talked about this cast shadow here, the eyeball throwing a shadow on the table. The eyelashes cast their shadow on the upper part of the eyeball. And sometimes to the point where you can't tell the difference between the iris, the eyelashes, the watermark, the plane, and the shadow. Sometimes they're all so dark and ambiguous. Okay, cool. So like I said, this upper eyelid is, functioning that it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. It's inside the socket, but when the eyelid is open, it folds over itself and it creates a uniquely, it's pretty uniquely human actually. It's like, if you don't include it, the fold, this dark flap above the eye, it just doesn't look human. And that fold leads into the structure of the corner of the eyebrow. And we'll get into eyebrows today because it's just not going to work because I have all this other stuff going on in here. But this would be since this is the right side eye, you have the keystone, which you're getting into the bone structure, but this is the eyebrow ridge. And then the hair would be, up here. But I can't really get into that. But a lot of times the eyebrow throws a shadow, the brow ridge, the bone throws a shadow up here. It's too ambiguous at the moment. But these are the things that we're looking for. So we've got the upper eyelid, we've got the eyelashes, we've got the shadow on the eye, we've got the pupil, we've got the iris, light side, shadow side, we've got the highlight in the eye, we've got the light side of the sclera, the shadow side of the sclera coming from the sphere itself. The same, you could also say, like, I like to think about the lower eyelid almost like a train track. And you can almost like see how these train tracks, wrap around the mountain and then disappear, into that shadow of the corner as well. Sweet. And trying to think of the other stuff that we'll get into some other stuff, but there is this little, I call it like a skin bridge. It's like the fold and then like the outside of the tear duct is the gland in here, but there's almost like, that's like the moat. And then there's this like protective layer around the gland. It's like the upper eyelid comes here, wraps around the gland and then goes back down into the lower eyelid. It's important to know that there's this little distance in between the eye socket, which is bone here at the keystone, and then where the tear duct begins. I saw there's this Matisse painting at the BMA, and it's like he has the edge of the keystone, the edge of the eye socket, and then the tear duct goes right up against it, and it's just like, oh, it's like so violating. Not that Matisse didn't make some great drawings, he did, but he also makes these like fundamental mistakes so often that I'm like, what do you think? I don't know why. I don't know why. cool. All right, let's see if we can actually draw some eyes now. It's gonna be so fun. This book, I got this book yesterday. It's like the image. It's a Degas drawing book, and some of the sketches are really big and really beautiful. So we'll start with this woman. Does anybody have any questions right now? It's like 5:19. It's like perfect. Honestly, that warm up was way more than a warm up, so it took a full hour. But it'll last a lifetime. If not, you will not lose. This information is distilled. There's a lot of stuff to include. There's a lot of stuff to leave out. This is what needs to be used. Okay, let's get on board. This is Madame Hurdle. I have no idea who she is. That's just what the title of it is. Now I'm gonna throw another, not a wrench into your understanding. I'm gonna like supplement your good brains with how to keep. And now that we know like the anatomy of the eyes and what to use and what to keep and what to, we're gonna see how Degas does this. And then what we're gonna do is, yeah, let's see. Well, let's just see what we got. The vital component is in order to keep these eyes. Okay, so this is that's straight, and then it's gonna go like almost straight. Focus this. Should I go even lower, y'all? Let me see if I can get even closer. God, so freaking gorgeous. Don't be too close to focus. Don't be too close to focus. All right. So I'm just going to say off the bat that you are welcome. Okay. Yes. All right. Don't bump it. Whatever you do. Okay, so here we go. The eyes are great. The eyes are simple. We just went over the eyes. He abbreviates them. What he does better than most people is showing us actually how to get from tear duct to tear duct. So this head is at an angle, which is a little bit annoying, but whatever. You guys are up for the challenge. What you need to do is get the form of the keystone. So now I'm going to build the keystone overtly. Okay, so I'm going to draw it like hardcore so you don't miss it. And then we're going to go and do, I guess we'll probably do the eyes on the left because it's like closer to, yeah, it's closer to the one that I just did. And we'll go over all the parts and we'll go over like how he drew everything. But the key to this sketch is that you have to get the keystone. And the keystone is, the right side of the keystone is what he gives us. So we're going to start here. And then the keystone gives you the beginning of the nose. And then it also is going to provide you with, it's the form that is the unibrow. So I'm going to draw it here. The edge of the keystone runs into the eyebrow up here. And then I come across, and then it's going to be long and thin up here. But this line here would connect to the eyebrow if he allowed the line to exist. So that goes up there. And then, I don't know, the part of me wishes, anyway, I wish he did make it a little bit stronger. So this is the unibrow area. So I'll put some unibrow dots in there. And then we're going to come down the side of the eye socket. which he does not really show. There's the side of the eye socket. Here's the front of the nose versus the side of the bridge of the nose. We are going to jump over that. We're going to jump over and get the start of the tear duct. So this is the tear duct, this inner part of the tear duct. Then this is the outer moat that I was talking about. We have to get to the location of the outer moat. So this is the inside edge of the eye socket, which is not featured in this picture. They're going to jump over and we're going to get the outside of the moat. Then jump over the outside of the moat, and then we're going to get the start of the tear duct gland, which in this case is just this black, it's almost like a rounded tipped arrow. That's what this is right here. This is going to be awesome. All right, so from that black tear duct, we're going to come across the bottom, just like how I told you I'd like to make the lower eyelid first. It doesn't, there's many different, there's many different orders, and I change the order from day to day. So there's the watermark. It's come across the front of the eye, and then it curls up on the side. Then from this outer moat, we're going to get the thickness of that eyelid, comes across, and then it wraps around. And now it doesn't look like much right now, but these are the component parts. From the tear duct, we're going to come out from that arrow. We're going to do the watermark. So we're going to draw where the eyelid touches the eyeball. Oops. So it comes down, up, and across. So it goes down, it basically hits the eyelid, the skin actually touches the round part, comes up around the ball, and then comes back in and connects to the other eyelid. It's amazing. All right, so now we have to place inside of that, kind of like that football shape. Inside of this shape, we have to place the pupil and the iris. The iris is the round part. The sclera is the white part. So there's a white shape on this side, and there's a white shape on that side. It looks almost like an arrowhead, or like a, it just looks like an arrow. So the bottom of the arrow is the edge of the iris, and then the top and the side is the lower eyelid and the upper eyelid. There's one on the other side. You just got to pay attention to the nature of that shape. So on the right side, you get the right side of the iris. It seems like it comes down and kisses the lower eyelid, and then it's going to sweep up. The round part sweeps up. I'm trying to mimic both the shape of my iris, which is a circle, which is kind of like the friendly shape, and then I'm also trying to take on the shape of the sclera. So what does the shape of the sclera look like? And does my sclera match the sclera of the white of the eye? All of these questions I say when I'm drawing actual people. I don't think about anything different, like whether I'm copying a master drawing and learning how Degas thinks about it, or that I'm looking at nature itself. It's all the same thing. Like I can't think any other way, because this is the only way to do it. All right, so I've got the rounded part of the iris, and then like Degas uses like a weird horseshoe like square. Like, do you see how the pupil is like, it's like a four sides. He doesn't even use a circle, and he doesn't even complete the top. It's like a wild abbreviation. So at least we got the iris, and at least we got the pupil, and we might be able to shade it. I don't know. There's a little bit of tone in there. I think that's helpful, knowing that the iris is darker than the sclera. There's no other way to make the iris and the pupil darker than the sclera other than like shading it. So that'll be helpful. Remember, we made the thickness of the lower eyelid. which is great. He makes the line of the lower eyelid, when he draws the outside of the thickness, he makes it a little bit darker. Notice he doesn't use any eyelashes, no eyelashes. It's just like his choice. There is a very subtle indication of the thickness of the upper eyelid. If you ask me, it's like underplayed. So we have the watermark where the eyelid touches the eyeball, and then we have the thickness of the upper eyelid. I looked like I overplayed the upper eyelid, but I didn't. I actually underplayed the watermark. So I'm going to reinforce my watermark and darken that up a little bit. It's amazing when you fine tune your drawing ability, like to the point where, I mean, most people would look at this and think it's like right. I look at it and I'm like, there's so much wrong with this drawing, but it's good. But it doesn't have to match exactly as long as you're drawing the right stuff. So by repeating like the mantra of all the things that need to be included, even if they're wonky, even if they're like slightly off, it's gonna work. Okay, so let's do this one. From the moat on the outside, we are going to find the nature of her fold. So it looks like it's concave here, and then it hits the top of the eyeball, and then it starts to go slightly convex, I guess. You know, it starts to go downhill. I'm looking at the distance between the eyelid and the fold. Like, so what is the actual thickness of the upper eyelid? And then it looks like it's got a little tail. Cool. So the moat goes up and then it comes across and it's got a little tail. All right, so here's the part that I'm going to offer in the same way that I drew the keystone up here, which are the lines that he did not include. When you follow the fold, it comes down and then it wraps up into the brow ridge. So, you know, this, you can actually see it. He addresses it in terms of tone. So he just like adds some of these straight lines because in his mind, he knows it's there. I'm actually literally drawing the curve to separate that part of the brow ridge. And the brow ridge is going to be, you know, thin. You know, the eyebrow hair is thin, angles up, and then it's going to come across. And it looks like he uses an S curve. I'm not, I don't know about the fashions of eyebrows always change. I think they think it's still fashionable to have thicker eyebrows, both in men and women. So you can, you know, apply your eyebrows according to what you think looks best. All right, so there's nothing worse than a single eye. I shouldn't say that, but a single eye in this context is gonna, I might grade myself and I might say, okay, yeah, I'll give myself like a 90 on this eye. If I go back and draw the second eye, with the second eye in place, I'll be able to come back and notice that there's like so many things that could be adjusted and could be toned. But let's just do this. I'm going to come back and refine this later. I really got to get this other eye in because the eyes work in conjunction with one another. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to follow the same order of operations. And once you get used to like thinking in these terms and looking for the things, then it'll happen really fast. And it's actually a really fun, you know, it's almost like a dance. It's like a mental dance that you go through once you learn the process. Okay, so I've got the edge of the keystone and he seems to darken it up a little bit on this side. And I think what he's attempting to do is indicate that there is the inside of the keystone, the part that he didn't draw on this side, the side of the nose and the side of the eye socket. He indicates it a little bit by just thickening that line. And then we're going to jump over this little skin part, and then we're going to identify the talon of the the tear duct gland. And I love that little shape, that little talon shape. It looks like a sideways shark fin. The inside of that gland echoes the same curvature as the eyeball. So cool. All right, so you can now we just do the thing. So out of that little talon, we're going to get the girdle or the belt loop or the rounded bend of the watermark wrapping around the lower eyelid, wrapping around the eyeball. And then we're going to do the thickness of that lower eyelid. Because of the eyelashes, I think he's able to go thicker on those eyelashes. You know, on that line rather, not eyelashes. He doesn't actually draw the eyelashes, but he draws the thickness of it. He draws the line thicker to indicate that there is eyelash hair there. You actually see the side of the lower part of the eyelid. I didn't mention it over here because I have to drop the paper, and I don't want to do that just yet. But she has a nice little, lower eyelid that, is the part that's, up against the eyeball. And then she's got a little bit of a bag under her eye right here, which is kind of interesting. It's it's like the puffy tissue and fluid that helps pad the eye and helps the transition from the eyeball into the eye socket, like the actual bone. So it might just indicate, lower eyelid, and then might indicate a little bit of that, side transition. Okay, but I don't want to get sidetracked. All right, from that talon, we're going to come back up. We're going to get the watermark and the upper eye, the watermark and the thickness of the upper eyelid, I think are one and the same. From this angle, it looks like, it looks like they're the same. And this is the fun part for me, is always, challenging myself to see, okay, did I estimate the shapes of the lower eyelid and the upper eyelid? Are they correct? You never really know until you place the pupil and the iris. And she's looking hard to the right. Oh, I got to show you guys this. I forgot that this woman, we have a poster at Mitchell School of this huge bouquet of flowers, and there's this woman sitting on a table next to it, and this is actually the woman. I've never taught this drawing before, but I've taught that painting so many times. So the wonderful thing that he does for the iris in this one, he used a horseshoe shape here, a little bit of a rounded bottom and two straight sides. Here he gives her a crescent moon, and it's so gorgeous. It's like he's drawing the dark side of the moon. And it's like, it's weird. It's like, that's enough. It's just amazing that seems to be enough. For me to adjust my line weight to match his. And then it looks like there's a little tone in that iris as well. Like I said, I'm not trying to make this thing perfect. I'm just trying to show the terms, show the things to look for. Side of the eye thing. Okay, and now we have to get the fold. Let me move this up a little bit. Okay, cool. Darn. All right, so the fold is, we could come up from here, from the center and go back, or you could just go from the upper eyelid and go from the fold from there. Whatever it might be. Unfortunately, the best part about this drawing, I have to admit, the best part about this drawing, what if I just zoomed up a little bit? It's still not going to fit on my paper. The best part of the drawing is going to be the brow ridge on this side. Look at this elegant line. So let's just show you how I would do it. So you get the corner of the eye, and then you get the edge of the profile so that you actually see the rounded part of the brow ridge. And then you get the start of the cheekbone up here. So there's this little moment where it's like transition from cheekbone into the brow ridge, and then it wraps up from the brow ridge. It follows the fold, hits the brow ridge, wraps back up, and comes right back into the keystone. It's like the most elegant and most very classical French move, meaning he does this move over and over again. It's just the part of how you draw a portrait. That's it. It's not like, the order doesn't matter. You can do it in any order. You can't, there's certain things if you're going to draw a human and you want to have it to look like a human, There's just things that need to be used, and it's wonderful. It goes back to ancient times. I really want you to be able to see the rest of her face. Let's refocus. Yeah. It's just nice when you can see the whole thing in context. Notice how the and I didn't even bring this up, but notice how he doesn't use any blending stump. He chooses he's right-handed, so he can choose this direction. If you can you can hold your pencil up or on your page, the same direction is used in parallel lines, indicating tonality. Rather than blending, he doesn't need to. He's got you have a mentality when you're drawing lines, like what we just did in the eyes and the eyelids and the hair, and then you have a different expression when you're making tones. And it really is something special, and it's very doable. You guys can do this. I love seeing and then not only does it, look at the loop from the eyebrow ridge wraps up and sweeps all the way down into the nose, and then it does another S curve into the rounded ball of the nose. I mean, look at that. Look at that S curve. I mean, I don't know, man. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's just kind of like some next level stuff. And you have to be able to see it in order to be able to do it. Like you can make it yours, but you got to know it exists even to be able to attempt it. I can really tell that the eyes, the bottom of the iris here is darker. I may not be employing the same devices that he is, but there's this little puff, this little shadow puff in the corner of the eye. The moat seems to stand out a little bit more. There's a little bit of the bag under the eye here. There's a right side bag, which has a unique property, and then the left side bag. And then the underneath of the eyelid seems to be a little bit darker. And then the only thing that the structure of my face looks better even than his, because I think part of what maybe these guys were up to is like the keystone drawing, that shape that I made, is so fundamental to the portrait, but it's almost like it almost takes the mystery away. And as an artist that's kind of protecting his secrets, he may have actually just erased it to nullify it so that people didn't see how. It's like a magician revealing his trick, sort of. No, that is just pure speculation. I mean, I have no idea, but I don't know why he clearly used it, and then he clearly went back in and erased it. I mean, you can actually see the eraser mark on the piece. Add some, it's like this idea of like punching your lights and punching your darks. You can control your line weight, and you can, where you want more emphasis, you can add higher contrast by, in this case, darkening lines. You can actually emphasize, in a painting, you can add, you can punch your lights as well. Here, we're not really punching the lights because we don't have white chalk. Yeah, that fold goes a little bit darker on that right side eye. Sweet. I highly recommend you all go sit in front of a mirror and just draw one of your eyes, and look for the things. Don't try to draw your eye. Like, don't try to get overwhelmed. Don't try to like do anything more than what we just. Don't try to sketch anything more than what we just went over. It doesn't have to be an impossible task. These are the keys though, because I don't think there was anything that really, other than the concept of the keystone, I don't, the between the eyes, there's nothing that I include that I did. There's nothing that I included, that Degas included that I didn't include in my original line. In fact, he's including less. He's using less. He didn't even really put the highlight in the eye, and both sides of the sclera aren't really, he went softer with some of the lines. I mean, you can see where it's like lost and found, or this inner portion of the eyelid here, the lines just really do go super soft. So he's more in control of his line weight. But like I said, it's almost more impressive what he left out than what he's including. Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice, but so small. All right, 2-minute warning on this one. Let's see if I can find. I want to find a big old eye. Well, how about that? Spectacular. There's the first page I opened to. All right, well, here it comes, y'all. This eye is so beautiful, and it's the painting of an eye. My God, it's gorgeous. All right, we only have 15 minutes left. Let's see if we can do this one. And then I would like to leave maybe 3 minutes at the end for people to show if there's any big wins. All right, here are these Mary eyes. So there are both of them. I kind of want to focus in on this one though. And I might even zoom in even closer. So now the eye looks a little, I think it looks a little scary, to be honest with you. And the reason it looks so scary is that it's facing out directly, so it's exact symmetry. And you're seeing almost entirely 360 degrees around the iris. Whenever anybody gets startled, whenever you get scared, they're like, ah, like their eyelids go up and you see all of them. And it's just ingrained in our personality to perceive that. And there's just no getting around it. So, part of the things that freak me out, honestly, about like cartoons today is like, like this, like when the eyes are like that, it's almost like it's nulling us to the, yeah, you can post it. Is this the video?
Yeah, I took it. I just did like a little like explanation of what we were doing and what as a student I do.
Whoa, sweet. So you made a TikTok of this exact class?
Yeah. And I just did like a little like, oh, what my perspective is kind of, because I feel like, I don't know.
A little reflection.
Yeah, like a reflection.
Can I show it to the class?
Yeah, if you want.
So that was actually so it was a good lesson.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a good lesson. I just,
That your eye is beautiful.
thank you.
All right, I'll show it. I'll turn up the volume so you guys can hear.
It's really weird hearing my voice. I did not like that part of it.
So there's a guy named a local guy. He's like the voice of the Ravens. His name's Jerry Sandusky. And he does a consulting group and helps leaders and entrepreneurs and corporate people like perform better on Zoom and in front of the camera. So like he coaches young talent. Like if there's a football player that's like trying to break into broadcasting, he like will coach them. He's local. I go to the gym with him. And he said that there's two things that people oftentimes don't like themselves, like the way that they look on screen. And it has to do with what you're used to is looking in the mirror. And what you look like in the mirror is the reflection. And then what you see on camera is not the reflection. So you look like a different person. And so that can be jarring to people. The other one is your resonance, the resonance of your voice. It sounds profoundly different through the vibrations coming through your skull and through the mass of your head and like the organ being inside. So like you don't actually hear your voice sounds different to the rest of the world. And the anxiety that comes from not feeling comfortable with the sound of your voice, everyone else is already accustomed to it. The only person that's not used to it is you. So like you don't even have to worry about it. Like it's like you, and then the more you hear yourself, the more natural, the more comfortable you get with it, and the less you have to like kind of worry. It was just like two things that I thought were like particularly reassuring for me. Being on these Zoom calls, I've always liked the way I looked, but yeah, it did take me a little while with the sound thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the video is so cool. All right, here it comes, y'all. Let me make sure it's in focus. All right, now that I got in focus, I need to focus it again.
Hi everyone, I am a student at the Mitchell School of Fine Arts, and today I wanted to give you a Zoom lesson sneak peek. Typically, we start off our lessons analyzing what we want to draw. For this first hour, we are usually focused on a certain subject. Today, our subject was the human eye. After analyzing, the teacher guides us step-by-step on how to construct an eye. The teacher as well talks about the anatomy of the subject. Since today our lesson was about the eye, he talked about the functions of each part of the eye and why we specifically have and evolved to have these functions. Learning about these specifics makes the subject easier to draw as well as understand.
Boom! Boom! So good, dude. You can say Trevor if you want to.
Okay, I wasn't sure because like, I don't know, because does anyone else teach?
Not really. We used to have we had a bunch of teachers before COVID, and
Yeah.
but they just haven't come back. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like,
Yeah, I guess I'm just so used to it because I was taught by Beth, I think.
yeah. Beth got married and she teaches at Schuler. Patricia got married and teaches at Schuler. Mary is like has a full blown painting career that's going. Stacy's kind of like my Zoom assistant.
Yeah.
So she's there a lot. She's not like teaching classes directly. And then my mom started helping me on Saturday mornings with like with the kids.
Yeah.
So, and she won't take any money. So I mean, she doesn't work. I mean, she helps, but doesn't work.
So just say Trevor.
What's that?
I just say Trevor.
Yeah, you can say Trevor. All right, I'm gonna try and draw this. We've got 7 minutes. Do I dare? Or should we just be happy with what we did? I don't know. If I can get it in focus again. There it goes. So crazy beautiful. Yeah, and it's one thing to sketch it in pencil, and it's another thing to do it in paint. And they're all, and the painting is even better. I mean, it's even more glorious. So this is the, and it's so subtle. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to start with the tear duct. It's like this teeny inner triangle. And then there's the watermark. Let's do the bottom first. Swoop around. Whoosh, whoosh. The rounded part of the orb. Then there's the contact point, the lower eyelid. Gonna wrap around it. In this eye, it almost appears that the lower eyelid gets thinner as it reaches the corner. Do you see that? So it's like it's a thin, I don't know if it like angles up or what, but there's the thickness of the lower eyelid. Upper watermark, I'm gonna use the top of the talon to help guide me. Comes up, rounds across. So this artist is Albrecht Durer. You can find all kinds of abbreviated versions of these things. This is like so natural. I mean, Durer is like one of the greatest greatest artists who've ever lived, and he was like so OCD, like he included like everything. So I mean, look at the beautiful rays, the rays of eyelashes, both on the bottom and the top. This one feels actually like a rising sun. Like it feels like a morning daybreak. Anyway. So the upper eyelid comes across and then passes behind. God, this is great. The underplane is in shadow a little bit. I shouldn't do any shading yet because I just don't have I don't have all the information yet. All right, so I'm going to try and do the iris, which is the rounded part. Golden brown eyes. Paying attention to the shape of the sclera on this side, the shape of the sclera on that side. I have to really, actually I don't have to. I was going to say, I'm going to draw the circle of the pupil. And then the way that, I wonder what it's, this is one of those examples of the window. Do you see how there's a cross in the highlight? That is like the grid of the window panes. So it's actually like the crisscross of the window panes. Amazing. And then it looks like there's two other windows that are further away. So the two dots that are inside the pupil. Yeah, I mean, that pupil is so prominent. I'm going to try and draw two little circles that hopefully I don't fill in when I shade the pupil. Not as easy as it looks. And then the light is coming from the left. Okay, so this is this weird inversion that happens, and I'm not exactly sure why. I think it has to do with the lens and the way the light passes through the lens. Remember when I said that the bottom half of the iris will get shadow? It's actually inverted, and I think it really does have to do with the lens. So there is a little bit of shadow from the eyelid, but you can actually see how the lower part of the iris is lighter, and then the upper part here is darker. So I'm gonna put that little cross in there. I'm not talking about the highlights in the eye. I'm actually talking about the brown part of the iris. Even though the light is coming from up here, the bottom half, instead of going into shadow, it goes into, it gets actually lighter. So now, because I did that, there is the shadow from the upper eyelid, and then the upper eyelid itself is a little bit darker. And then I can add the the rising sun eyelashes that are so gentle coming out of the top there. I'm not even doing it justice because it's like, in order to do it justice, you'd have to paint it and you'd have to have like the most delicate little piece of paint. I got 1 minute left. This is so annoying. Okay, we got this lower part. We can add some eyelashes coming off the bottom. You can see how there's the shadow on the lower eyelid on this side. You can see how if you draw the fold up here, you can see this is the part I was talking about before. It's like you have the light part of the eyelid, and then as the eyelid turns away from the light source, the top of it even goes into shadow. And then you have the sausage, which wraps around up here. That's what this is. And that turns back into both the socket and the eyebrow. So you can spend some time thinking about these things, but there's so many examples. And the best example, guys, is your own eye. Just get close to a mirror and see if you can see all these things. And no painting ever does any justice to the human eye. There's just nothing that's more beautiful. I don't think. I saw an eclipse. I saw the moon eclipse the sun completely in the totality, and even that, the scale of it was impressive, the magnitude. But I still don't think it's. I mean, every human has two eclipses in our eyes. Add some shade. So this would be an example where the blended, because he's got paint blends, and you can soften all of these lines just the same way that you can soften your brush strokes. You apply everything like you're drawing. Degas, we studied Degas early. He was the portrait that we looked at. He said art is just drawing with paint. Kind of famous for that. So if you are able to draw it, you can paint it. But if you can't draw it, it's really hard to paint it. If not impossible. Okay, it's 6:01. Does anybody want to show what they got? Anybody want to be anybody get some good eyes?
I just got called for dinner, so I gotta go.
Okay. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Have dinner.
Bye.
You're welcome. Anybody else want to show? No pressure. Mr. Message, anything good? What's that, Maddie?
I get the first lesson, the first eye, and everyone saw that, so I would share.
Yeah, you did share it. Everybody shared it. All right, Lonnie, how'd you do? Did you enjoy it? Did you like this one? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Maybe it was much.
Wow.
It's not a very talkative group, Maddie.
Yeah, it's way different from the morning group.
the morning crew, man. We can't keep them quiet. Estelle, yeah, is your thing not working? It might not work.
No, my hand's up because I want to share. Like.
Oh yeah, share it, dude. There's no rules. Let me stop the share here so we can get a good look. Pin.
I don't really like how my eyes turned out. However, I did. Hold it.
It's a beautiful eye.
I did a bunch of other eyes too up here. Not the best. And then I started lining and coloring this one.
Yes.
And a few other drawings too.
Get it. Yeah, those are great. Thank you. Sebastian, did you get anything good? You're on mute. All right. Well, speak now or forever hold your peace.
We should do some games with this group.
We should do some
Oh,
ice
sorry, I'm here.
Yeah.
Someone came to our door.
No, you're fine.
All right. Let's see.
We're gonna replace.
I got one good one. and
Okay. Well, one good one's better than no good ones, but it's all steps up the mountain. Every step forward is a good one.
It's
Although I can't see any of your dog's eye.
yep, he likes to close them a lot.
Your eyes are closed. Whoa, nice. Yes. Oh, excellent. Cool. That's dope. Yeah, if you want to email, we gotta. Oh, by the way, tell your mom that I will give her a call. I missed her
Okay.
call today because I was in class, so I couldn't talk to her. But tell her I'm looking forward to talking to her. It's gonna be good.
All right. Yeah, I'll tell her that.
Yeah, please, thank you. Kaya, great work. Estelle, great work. Mr. Messick, I don't know if you're in the house, if you want to show it or anything, but I got to go to dinner. Last chance. Last chance.
Not really. I don't really like it too much.
Okay.
Eyes are not it's not the best thing I do.
Yeah. Well,
Not super good at it.
it's planting seed. It's planting seeds for later.
It's still good to practice, and even if you're not, if you don't feel the best at it.
Totally. I mean, I'm like 40 years old. I didn't master the eye until I was like 30. So you guys definitely have a step up. All right, everybody. That was great. Maddie, thank you so much for the whatever it's called.
The video.
Yeah. Was it TikTok? Yeah.
Yeah,
TikTok.
Did we
All
have
right.
like other classes today, or is this the last one?
This is the last one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Did you enjoy the break in the middle of the day?
Yeah, that was nice. I was like, wow, okay, I got some.
I know. I wrote on my my exercise machine, and I
Yeah.
I kind of built up to it. Now I'm ready for dinner.
Mhm.
All right. So tomorrow is Friday, right?
Yeah.
See you like 8:30, 9 o'clock?
On Friday?
Yeah.
Am I come? Okay.
Or I mean, I don't
Or
know.
no, did we have? I wasn't sure, but yeah, I'll come in.
Yeah. Let's do like 9.
Okay.
All right. Sweet.
Sounds good.
All right. See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody. I hope that was not too overwhelming and you enjoyed it.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Welcome, y'all.